Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all between. Jason, my brother, how you doing?
I'm fantastic.
I'm so excited for tonight's show.
Oh, I'm telling you. Yes,
And
it's a big one for us.
you know, it's one thing for someone to be in one band and have a huge following.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's another thing for someone to be in two huge bands and have a large following. He's
But
been
then,
in so many legendary bands. It's unbelievable. Probably the best resume in music. You know?
absolutely. And for guys our age and from our era,
Yeah.
I mean, he was and is the man.
Oh, never hear a bad word come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Always a gentleman. And he actually got us to like start the show real quick. And I'm like, that's why he's Rudy Sarzo. So many legends he's played with. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know, so let's bring on metalhead Fred Bonanno, who also writes for Metal Temple magazine. What's up, my brother?
Fred?
Hello, brothers. I thought you were talking about me there for a second, but you're talking about our guest tonight, of course, who, by the way, and we'll get right to him here in a second, but over the weekend, I saw for the millionth time, I saw Jeff Tate Saturday night, and it marked my 1 millionth time that I've seen him live. And Rudy has played with Jeff. So
Yep.
I don't know. I guess there's no introduction needed for this gentleman. He is truly a legend. He's played with some of the most legendary and influential musicians in rock and metal history. Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne, Ronnie James Dio, Whitesnake, Quiet Riot, just to name a few. So tonight it is our honor and pleasure to welcome to Creativity Talking, Rudy Sarzo.
Rudy, how are you, sir?
I love the little poster. The world loves Rudy.
I do.
That's
It's
pretty. That's
unbelievable.
really
You're
funny.
probably one of the
That's-
most loved guys on stage.
Well, it's recently I was thinking about what's the most rewarding thing about being a musician, and I would have to say is to be appreciated, to be loved. But I have a motto, which is don't be a dick. You cannot be loved if you're a dick.
Right.
So it's sometimes it's not about just the musical contribution, because no matter how great you are, if you're a dick, you're not going to be loved. So
Right.
you're missing out on the love you will get if you just treat people the way you want to be treated. It's very simple.
Right. A lot of
And
people have lost that whole respect thing, just in general.
it's very unfortunate. But then again, everybody has their own journey.
Sure.
And everybody, a hero's journey is you gotta fail at something in order to get your, it's like a Rocky movie, basically.
Right.
You're gonna get knocked down, and then you're gonna get up there again and finish the fight.
Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
initially, you came out of Florida, correct?
Oh, I came out of my mom, actually.
Hey!
I mean, if you want to go to like the very beginning of it,
Yeah.
and my mom and dad happened to be in Cuba.
Okay.
And so we left right after the revolution. We went up in Miami in 1961. I'm 73, so I was listening to music before rock and roll existed. So I've always been attracted to it,
Yeah.
and there's something very romantic about being a musician. Just the freedom.
Right.
The freedom that you're not going to a factory, because back in the day, my references, my mom and dad, when we moved to New Jersey, they worked in factories, and it was brownstones in West New York, New Jersey, and the weather and the snow and all of that, right? So I thought, well, I don't know. I think I I want something else. Oh, by the way, those guys, the Beatles, that just showed up on Ed Sullivan in on February 1964. I think I like what they're doing.
Right.
And then they pan the camera to the girls, and I go, I want that. I want that adulation.
Right.
That was it. That sealed the deal right there for me. So it's and then again, you become a musician, you fall in love with music, and then you marry that one girl, and everything you do, that I do with my wife for 40 years, is to impress her, and I'm still working on it. She's
Yeah.
not fully impressed. She's not
Yeah.
fully impressed yet.
Yeah, let us know when you hit that goal.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
All right. Well, like the other day, she can be she loves music, so there's always music in the house,
Yeah.
and she for a lot of the music that she's discovering now or falling in love with is what I grew up with. So she was listening to the Association, and
Oh,
she
right.
goes,
man.
yeah. So she goes, can you learn the bass to Wendy? Wendy went da 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 da, and I go,
Oh, the
yeah, okay.
association.
Yeah, the association, yeah.
Yeah.
And so so I forgot about it. So I always have my bass next to me in the sofa, in the living room. So I'm watching TV and playing a little bass, and she goes, so did you learn Wendy? So I had to I said, yeah. And so I just went along with okay, sounds like a pentatonic riff right here, which is a pentatonic riff in C.
Yeah.
And then she was satisfied. Not completely impressed,
But
because now
satisfied.
she wants Along Comes Mary. Along Comes
Oh,
Mary. And it's like,
all right.
oh my
Talk
God,
about the
okay.
Wayback Machine, huh? The Wayback
I
Machine.
know.
Love
I know.
music.
I know.
So Rudy, like early on, of all the instruments you could have chosen, what drew you to the bass?
Okay, very simple story. I owned a guitar. When I say I own, is because I'm trying to figure out what to do with this thing. Just an acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
and so I figure I could play on one string a melody. Okay, but what about the other strings? So uh, so I was very linear in my playing already. I could play melodies, but I didn't have like we have today. I mean, I go to YouTube every day just to get myself immersed in theory and other ways of looking, different perceptions of looking at the same 12 notes. So I love listening, watching teachers, because I think that is our responsibility, is to teach. If you have any information or any skills, share it with the world, teach. So I tip my hat off to all the great people that are devoting their time, musicians, to teaching all of us, or
Yeah.
actually sharing their perception of the same 12 notes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's a spark for me to I'm going to look at this now completely different. Oh wow, I hear things now different, and I apply them. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, depending on the style of music that I'm playing. And so it's what was I getting? What was the answer to the question?
Why you chose bass?
Oh, the bass. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now is I moved back to Miami from New Jersey, and our social network back then, as you guys remember, come on, you guys were around,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was that we had no social media. It was having a band. The band in the block, the band with the garage. You just walk in there, and in our neighborhood, every block had their own band, so you could not cross over across the street and play in the other band. That was, we had that rule. So I go to my block, the band. I show up with this acoustic guitar. It was an old Craftsman from Spiegel catalog, zebra stripe. Like cream color with faint zebra spots. I walked recently into a Cracker Barrel, and there was one hanging on the wall, just like it.
Yeah.
So I got to take a picture of it. So I'm wondering, was that my guitar? Finally wound up in Cracker Barrel. Could have been.
Could be. Yeah.
So yeah, could be. So I go in and introduce myself, and I go, I want to join your band. And they look at me, and I look at them. There's like 6 guitar players already in the room. I mean, not electric. You all had like acoustic. This is the kind of nobody could afford instruments back then.
Right. Yeah.
And so they say, well, we have too many guitar players. If you want to join the band, you got to play bass.
Right.
And I go, what's that? And they say, it's like playing a solo during the whole song. And I say, that's for me. Because I didn't know any chords to begin with. I mean, back then, I'm talking like really early on, the Ventures were huge. So I would listen to melodies that they were playing, and I would play that because I could play the melody, but the chords I have no idea of
Yeah.
Right.
what is a chord, And so that's how I became a bass player.
Nice. Well, me and Jason, we both met because of a teacher where we went to school down in Fort Lauderdale
Yeah.
back in 89, 90.
90,
So
Uh,
did you know Eddie Michal by chance?
me?
Yeah, he was an engineer down at Criterion.
Criteria. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? I grew up in Miami. I never recorded in Criteria because Criteria had
right?
national acts. And when I was living in Miami, I was just a guy playing the bars.
Yeah.
And so my first professional gig as a roadie was for Striper with Hurricane opening.
Oh wow, my brother's band. Yeah, awesome.
And then one of the teachers in Florida, Violet, was somehow connected to Hurricane. We didn't know, manager PR or something. I don't know. That's what she claimed anyway. But we always, it was cool to see the Quiet Riot gear here and there roll in the Hurricane set. I'm like, oh, Quiet Riot, and I got to touch.
Yeah.
I mean, when Quiet Riot came on the scene, MTV, the first huge video band.
Oh,
like you guys just.
My first love, man. 6th grade, Metal Health. That was my first metal record, and that set me off, on my journey.
And then seeing you were always sticking out because you had black hair. I had black hair at the time. Yeah. I had black hair. I had hair at the time, and you were just a different type of bass player. You weren't just hiding in the background. You were the entertainment. You were the show. You gave everyone their money's worth. You know what I mean? And I think so many bass players, when I see them on stage, I'm like, they play bass because of you. You seem
well,
to
you guys,
yeah.
You live in South Florida. You probably went to Pirates World a lot. Did you go there?
No, it was more like Button South at that time.
Oh, I played there. I played the one on the beach. I never got to. I don't recall playing at the other one, at the one in Hollywood. I played at the one right on the beach. Crazy Greg's the Button South. That was nuts. We used to do the afternoon shows, which was great because all of the ladies would come in with wet bikinis from the beach across the street, and they would start dancing in front of us, and drinking beer and having a good time. And this is like 2:00 in the afternoon, so it's perfect, And then we'll come back and do the evening set. Yeah, I got a lot of great memories. Yeah, the candy store was called the She before the Paul Lorenzo. Paul Lorenzo, who either owned or ran the candy store, he had the flying machine. That's where I started playing at in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah,
as a matter of fact, I met Frankie Banali right outside the flying machine on my birthday, November 18th, 1972. And the night before, his band had opened up for David Bowie, the only tour that the Spiders from Mars did in the United States. One tour. And they happened to be playing at Pirates World.
Wow.
And I went to see Bowie, and this last minute unannounced band, because the original band couldn't make it. So they, Frankie's band was called Ginger, and they were about to break up. And they called him up and say, "Hey, can you fill in for these guys?" So I walk in, I'm in the back, the cheap seats, and here's this band, but I'm looking at the drummer because he's got the most amazing drum kit and he's playing everything on it. And it was just like, I was blown away by this guy. Yeah. So the next day I'm hanging out at the Flame Machine, and somebody that I was talking to outside, that goes, "Hey, that's one of the guys that opened up for Bowie last night." So I ran over and told him, "Hey, I just saw you guys playing last night. I was really impressed. I love the band. And by the way, your drummer is amazing." So I went on about the drummer. And then I stop, and Frankie smiles and shakes my hand and he goes, "Hi, I'm Frankie. I'm the drummer in Ginger." And we hit it off, and we started playing immediately right after that. And then we left a couple of years later, when disco hit the South Florida really big,
Right.
I mean the playlist changed overnight. It went from like you could play anything rock and roll that's on top 40, for like Stones or Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin, to now it's just disco. So we left and we wound up in LA in '77. Yeah.
That was going to be one of my questions. I always wondered if you and Frankie knew each other in Florida before LA.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Speaking of Florida, Vince and I were down there. I did. I was more into audio recording. I did more studio work, and then Vince went on to LA to do movies and special effects and things. I worked for Peter Yanolos at Artisan Recorders. He had a mobile truck. And the last thing I worked on with him before I left was Jocko's birthday record. Pete had the tapes of Jocko's birthday party. And lately I've jumped back into bass pretty heavily, myself playing again and stuff. And I've been watching a lot of old Jocko videos and stuff. Pete also did Word of Mouth record and stuff. And I was wondering if, being down there, do you remember Jocko from the scene back in the day where, did you see him playing around and
I saw them playing in different situations. One of them was with Ira Sullivan. They used to play at the University of Miami campus. They would be like sandwich shops.
Yeah.
And they had a little stage, and Ira Sullivan, Baker's Dozen.
Yeah.
But he had a quintet to play the smaller places. And Jocko was the bass player, so I used to go and check him out all the time. And then when he was playing with Wayne Cochran, they had a residency over at the Newport Lounge in North Miami Beach. I used to go there all the time. Anytime that I was not playing, I was out and I was watching, and I would always look forward to see where Jocko was playing at. Another one was Will Lee. We were both in the same quinceañera circuit in Miami. He was in a band called Warlock, which later became Gold Rush, and then he left that band to join Dreams in New York.
I didn't know Will was a South Florida guy.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, his father was the dean of the music department at the University of Miami.
Oh, well, I'll be. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so he was very well schooled. I mean, I could tell by watching him and listening to him. Plus, he was a great lead singer.
Oh,
and lead singer who sang in English. All the other musicians I played with were Cubans.
Okay.
That sang English lyrics with a Cuban accent.
Right.
And he was like, oh, this guy sounds like what it sounds like on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely having Jocko in the neighborhood, it did a couple of things for me. It inspired me, and it kind of like scared me because I'm thinking, yeah, okay, there's gotta be 1,000 guys like this guy. I mean, you're just at that time it was like I didn't know he was the only one. There was only one Jocko, because that was like absurd to think that. No, there's gotta be 1,000 guys just like this guy.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's 1,000 other guys that are really good, but there was only one Jocko.
That's right.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And so, doing research and watching some older interviews and stuff. Of course, I've been, since what was it 82 83 when the first videos came out for Quiet Riot.
83. Yeah.
But also with with Ozzy and Randy and stuff and.
That was 82. Yeah, that was there's the videos that you see on YouTube are from 81, which is at the Rochester. We were playing in Rochester, and somebody in the record company got a hold of somebody who was running a what do you call that? Local network TV.
Right.
Like local access.
Yeah.
So we show up in this little studio. It was basically what you see on stage. Well, it's not a stage. We're playing on the floor of the studio. And then there was like a small bleacher, like seating for about 20 people, the most, to watch us perform. That was like the audience, And we looked at it, and Randy and he said to me, thank God nobody's ever going to see this. And now it's like the only thing that is really professionally, with 3 cameras produced, but it was local access. Fortunately, we had our sound guy, Chuck Wiesner, who was, the front of the house sound guy, who would always do, and this was like the first time he did it with us. He would go to the truck and he would mix us live.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why the sound was always, it sounded like it did at the venue, whether it's an arena or a theater. And so whenever you hear like a King Biscuit or a Westwood One audio from with Randy and in Ozzy, Chuck was mixing it live.
Okay.
Yeah.
What an iconic photograph.
Yeah. And at the what is it? In Chicago at it's by the airport, that big arena. Rosemont.
The Rosemont.
Yeah, Rosemont Horizon.
Rosemont. Yeah. That was taken there by Paul Natkin, photographer.
Yeah, that's where me and Fred are. We're in the suburbs of Chicago right now. Me and Fred are.
Yeah, where? I was living in Lisle for a while.
I'm in Westmont, but I grew up
in Woodridge. So no kidding. Yeah, we're right next to Lisle.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time. We moved to Chicago, so I was playing everywhere. The first place we played at was Rush Up, right on Rush Street.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys were ever there. You have to like go up
the stairs,
different stairs. Yeah, carrying a B3 and a Leslie.
Nice. Well, the Thirsty Whale was huge here too.
The Thirsty Whale. We did the Thirsty Whale. We did Monopoly. Yeah. We did everything but Beginnings. We did Gold. Was that what Gold Diggers? Yeah, something like that. We did Mothers.
Okay.
We did. There was one right outside of Beginning, kind of like on the border with Wisconsin and Illinois. We did Monopoly. Stop? What was it called?
You played a Brat Stop that was just over the border.
No, I think it was in Illinois, but right near. It was pretty close to Beginnings, Yeah, we played everywhere, and then we went deep into Michigan and Indiana and where else? Iowa, Wisconsin. Yeah.
So when you were in Lisle, tell me you went to the squirrel cage for a drink. You ever get to the squirrel cage?
I couldn't afford to buy a drink.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I was talking about this with Ricky Phillips because we were both in the same circuit. And he and I used to hang out back then. I mean, we still do when we see each other, but, we don't live in the same city anymore. Yeah. And we were talking about, befriending the waitresses so they could take us out to breakfast at the clubs.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to date a female bartender during college. So
yeah. One of the a residency. We used to stay at this place called Rush West, and it was a hotel with nobody living in it. There was a guy named Dominic who ran the place, and he was kind of like, like a tough Italian guy. I think there was something going on,
right.
in there, right? But the club was underneath, so they wouldn't pay us. They would just like let us rehearse, and you could live here. And across the street was a grocery store, so I would buy Triscuit and Braunschweiger.
Liverwurst.
Yeah, liverwurst. And my refrigerator was the windowsill. I would put it on the window to keep it, because it was always cold out there,
Yeah.
And I come to realize that all the keys, every single key opened up all the rooms. So let's say I was hosting, and he would walk in the middle of it, and he would like yell at the girl not to use the towels. Don't use the towels.
Like, who's
And
been
then he
eating my
would turn around and
Braunschweiger?
leave.
Yeah. Don't touch my brown.
Glamour of life of the rock star.
Absolutely. So then going back and doing the research, I didn't know that this is how you met Randy, or that you also worked at Ma's store.
Oh, yeah, the
Randy's
mom's music studio. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a school, music school.
Yeah, the school.
Well, I met Randy when I actually auditioned for the band, because when I saw Quiet Riot play for the first time in 1977, I did not meet Randy. I watched him perform, but I ran into Kevin, the singer, when he got off the stage. Finished, when the performance ended, and I ran into him, and I have been touring, with Frankie, with that band that we were living in Lyle, all over the place, like I mentioned, and I had seen a lot. I had seen a lot of what the competition, So when I saw them, I could see that they had a vision. They had a goal, and they were almost there. So I ran into Kevin. I introduced myself just to tell him, hey, you guys got it. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So about a year. So that whole trip in '77, I ran out of money. Frankie and we had to split. So we could survive and do all the things. So I went to New Jersey to play with my brother's band. This is way before Hurricane. So he was just playing clubs and doing things in the city. He was part of like a Jimmy Iovine's stable of musicians, that he worked with. So I got some money together, came back to LA, auditioned for Quiet Riot, and that's when I met Randy. And then later on, he asked me to teach at his mom's school, Musonia, and that's when I really got to know the depth of Randy's musical vocabulary. Because I never saw him during Quiet Riot rehearsal or performance playing classical guitar. I mean, and a classical, not just classical bits on an electric, but actually classical guitar.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. And I say, well, I didn't know you could play like that. And he says, well, actually, my first instrument is the classical guitar. I started playing it when I was 5 years old. Wow. And then I went electric so I could join a rock band and hang out with people my own age.
Yeah.
Go to parties, have fun playing music. Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things that you mentioned in your book, which we will get to a little bit later on too, which is a great book, great read, by the way. But you mentioned in there that Randy was thinking about eventually leaving the rock scene and getting just into classical. And I couldn't even imagine him.
Well, this what happened. He got, after, because he was playing with Ozzy way before I was. He's the one who got me in the band. So he already been for about maybe a year and a half playing with Ozzy. So by the time that right before he passed away, he had been playing straight for 3 years. And Randy was not built to just play the same thing every single night over and over again. He was too creative for that. And he found himself, in a box, musically. He couldn't get out, because we were constantly. I joined. Okay, Randy already. Okay, he recorded the Blizzard of Oz record, and then with Bob and Lee, Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, and Ozzy, they went on tour. Yeah, they did a tour. Then they came back. Immediately went to the studio to record Diary of a Madman. So then they put the new rhythm section together and to tour in the United States, and that's when I got the call and got the audition and joined the band. By then, Randy had done all of that nonstop. Okay, so now we're touring, and we started in April, and by September we were done, and then we took a month off, and then 4 weeks later we were back on the road again. Now to promote Diary of Madman in England and Europe. Right. And then we came back here the last week of December, and that's when we opened up at Cow Palace, December 30th. And then he passed away in the next year, in March 19th. So he never stopped playing, basically the same songs over and over again. So he, at that moment, right before he passed away, he was done doing that. He had to take a break. He had to do something. So his idea of taking a break was actually, he gave notice to Ozzy and Sharon about, about leaving the band and going back to school. He was going to go back to school to get his degree, like master's degree in music, and also do sessions.
Right.
He needed to be challenged musically and be creative, But then again, that's what's the status right before he passed away. Knowing Sharon, she's very creative. She can, make situations work out. And just same thing that she has been doing with Zakk Wylde, where Zakk has his own career, but also is a member of Ozzy. I'm pretty sure she will work, there's a possibility that she will work out something like that with Randy at some point.
Right. Yeah.
You know what? I was amazed to when I read in your book, when you first started with Ozzy, when he first started touring as a solo artist, how many shows had to get canceled because of lack of ticket sales, which kind of blew me away that he wasn't selling out these places. I did, luckily see you guys play here in Chicago. So I was blown away by that. But in your book, like I said, it said there was quite a few shows that got canceled. And I was really surprised that Ozzy wasn't selling out venue after venue. So when you were with the band then, was it kind of tough to kind of see that maybe it wasn't going the way you thought it would, that you weren't selling out these arenas?
Oh, no. I mean, once people showed up, the people that did show up to the venue, they got it. And what happened was it became word of mouth. Today's touring schedule is different from what it was 40 years ago. 40 years ago, first of all, there were all local promoters.
Right.
Like one guy had the Northeast, one guy had the Chicago area, and so on. Now it's like Live Nation, and there might be another one. And everything is. The vision is bigger. It's more locked in, right? And decisions for a whole different markets are made by a few individuals rather than each market having an individual picking the bands and the tours, when it's going to happen, and so on. So the routing was very different. You could play within 100 miles from each gig. And we will have legs. We will have the Northeast leg. We will have the Southeast and kind of like the middle, like Virginia, the Carolinas, and so on. And then we will go south, the East, then take a break, then come back, a couple of weeks later or a week later. And then by then the equipment have moved to Texas. Do a whole month in Texas, whole month, I swear. and then start going up, And then you start from up here. Then you in the Midwest, you start going through the Rockies. You start going west. Sometimes you go even into Canada.
Yeah.
And let's say if you're playing Duluth, you might want to go to Winnipeg from there. Whatever is close, whatever is close by. So it was routed completely different. It was very organic. And then you would do the West Coast, and you either start from below, go up, or vice versa, and it spread really quickly. This is what happened. Also, the first leg of the Blizzard of Oz tour, we had Motorhead, so it was a sausage fest in the audience. It was just dudes. Hey, come on, Motorhead and a guy that used to be in Black Sabbath,
Right.
And then Def Leppard joined the tour, the second leg of the tour, Blizzard of Oz. That changed the dynamics. Now this is their second record, and MTV was not really the significant MTV that became that
Right.
in
Later
83.
on.
We're talking 82, but they had a following already of females. And now to balance this out, you got the dudes and the ladies coming to the shows. So now you're gonna get a larger audience, And so that, and the girls just love Randy. So he transcended the typical heavy metal, artist image. Now he was, he had a very pop image about him, very photographic, girls just love Randy. So by Diary of a Madman, it was all arenas, and that's why we could afford to have the castle and the production and all of that, just because of the appeal of the band. And then of course the records. You gotta have the records, you gotta have the songs, otherwise you got nothing. So it was a combination of all of that. But it was built by word of mouth. Really, really. I mean, if we would do like 2 or 3 shows in a row, you could see, within 100 miles from each other, you could see familiar faces in the audience.
Yeah.
Because they were coming back and bringing their friends.
Right.
Check this out. Check this guitar player out,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and what you were saying back then, because I'm just a few years younger than you, Rudy, so I got to see all these kick-ass bands. But back then, the bills were Ozzy and Motorhead, Ozzy and Def Leppard. I saw Iron Maiden and Van Halen on the same bill. Other than Fest nowadays, you just don't get that 2 star power acts anymore. You'll get a major band and then whoever. Back then, boy, you'd see some kick-ass bills on shows. Sometimes 3 of them. I think Van Halen played with Journey and Montrose, and now unfortunately you just don't see that. It's probably the logistics of it and so forth as well.
Logistics and ticket sales and the cost of touring, from the buses to the fuel, insurance. The insurance it's gone crazy.
Right.
I mean, and now the way that it's happening is that Live Nation makes bands responsible for no shows, because if people get sick, the band becomes responsible for that. So now the band has to take insurance against that. So to either have the show rescheduled or refunds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the business is kind of a mess now, isn't it? I mean, we thought it was bad back in the 80s, with the record companies, but now it's sort of like the Wild West,
I feel bad for the younger guys coming up. I do, and then I don't.
Yes, yes. Yeah. No, I do. As a musician. I mean, I love music, and I would hate to see music go away. But we haven't talked about AI yet.
Oh, I'm totally so against that. Oh, can't stand that. Okay, let's talk about AI.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Have you guys checked out the AI apps, if you want to call that? They're not really apps, because right now it's not an app, but it does work with Copilot. It's called Sonu, Sonu, and they'll give you a few songs for free, but it's subscription based. Yeah. And it's really interesting. Especially for songwriters, because it becomes that, look, we don't write music the way we used to.
Sure.
Just because, for example, I live in LA. Mm-hmm. Most of the people I've been here for 45 years. Most of the people that I knew that live here, they're not here anymore. So if I'm going to write a song with somebody that I knew, that I was in a band with, that are in LA, they're gone, right? So I don't have that in the same room collaborative experience.
Sure.
So what happens is, you start working on a song, and that person that used to be there in the room next to you telling you, yeah, I like it, or I don't like it, oh, I got this other idea. It's not there anymore. But AI is. So you turn to AI. Yeah. AI is that extra, is that guy in the band that shows up with a song half baked. And you go, you know what? No, really. I can work with this half baked now because AI is only as good as the database that they have.
Right.
In about a year from now, is or less, because it's growing exponentially.
Yeah.
It's going to come up with their own full songs, everything done, completed, with really good lyrics.
That amazes me. I'm just concerned, like, as far as like the visual arts, like, we need artists to still be here. Like, that's where the humanity kind of is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like,
but most
filmmakers and painters and stuff, like, a lot of people are losing their jobs, because I know a lot of people are doing digital stuff, and everyone's very concerned on that side of it.
Yeah, but you still need a human, a consciousness running it and behind it, and making decisions. The way that I look at concerts now, I grew up very raw, organic performances. I would go and see Led Zeppelin at the Sportatorium in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's 4 guys on stage looking at each other. They had chemistry. One of the very early bands that actually acknowledged, hey, there's somebody else on stage with me, and let's have this rapport,
Right.
And very little lights, good, decent sound, but it was the music and it was the magic that they were creating. And not only that, you looked at them and you go, wow, these guys are from, where did they come from?
Yeah.
They had this really magical vibe about them, and just about everybody, Deep Purple, all the great bands that I saw them, back then, and they didn't have any production. It's a backline, lights. The Who were so theatrical and so dramatic. They didn't need what the average stadium show is today. If you look at the stage, well, actually the Sphere, if you look at that Sphere in Vegas,
that's crazy.
The band is dwarfed by that big snowball, and nobody's looking at the band. Everybody's like looking at this Cinerama Dome graphics going on, and I'm going, but that's U2 playing down there, and and they look like this big.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, okay, no, thank you, I'll pass.
That's just crazy. How much money they're spending on that?
Oh, just on electricity alone. Electricity alone. Oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
What's your thoughts on Kiss? Have you seen Kiss? I mean, you've probably seen Kiss. What's your thoughts on Kiss and their stage show?
Well, Kiss, became the most successful band at being Kiss.
Yeah.
It's a vision. They knew exactly what they wanted to do.
Sure.
And they went beyond probably what their expectations, or probably what they did is they had goals. Okay, we're gonna do this. Okay, we did this. Let's make it bigger. Let's keep making it bigger. And they retired on top.
Yeah,
they went out like they went out with a bang.
Yeah.
So nobody can say, well, Kiss was like phoning it in towards the end, and they didn't care. No, they care into the very last note. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that last shot of their last show, and it's filled with smoke, and the smoke goes away, and there's nothing on stage. Are you kidding me? What a great way!
That was great.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I didn't cry.
It was all a dream.
But, yeah. So, excuse me. So, when MTV hit for you guys, like, how were you guys kind of surprised? Like, because you do a music video, you're like, man, you're probably doing this on your day off. You do a video, and then, all of a sudden, it made it something else and expanded your audience. Just.
Yeah, we were too busy. When you're like almost at the reaching the top, it's like, okay, what we did not think it was going to happen is happening. So you're paying attention to what's going on, but you're thinking forward. You're planning forward, right? I already been through that going up the mountain with Ozzy. I
Right.
experienced that. And the landscape is exactly the same.
Yeah.
You start at the bottom and you start going through the middle and the landscape.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the top, it's the same landscape. And I went through that with Ozzy, with Quiet Riot, and then with Whitesnake in the
Right.
United States.
Yeah.
So once you just start, you know that, okay, if this and this and this happens, we're gonna get over here.
Yeah.
Right.
You just know it.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing to experience, but a lot of things happen once you get to the top.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and it was always cool. Like a new project would come out, and then you'd hear, "Oh yeah, Rudy Sarzo, what? I'm buying it," and you go because you know what I mean. Okay, because
Well, with Ozzy, it was once Randy passed away, I just lost the joy of making music, and I lost my connection to Quiet Riot. See, Quiet Riot will always be home to me, no matter what I've done, no matter what else I'll do, in my life, always be home to me because there's a certain consciousness that comes with that, and we all shared that at that time. We shared that collective Quiet Riot consciousness that we never spoke about politics, we never talked about religion, we never talked about who was going out with who. It was all about the music. And Randy was at the core, the center. He was the unspoken leader of the band. He led by example. He never told anybody what to do. If you were not told what to do, it's because you belong here. Okay. If you start rocking the boat, then then you're not gonna be here much longer. So, but it wasn't about rocking the boat. It's about sharing the same consciousness. And once I lost that with Ozzy, see, because look, Ozzy and Tommy Aldridge already been around for 15, 16 years, playing with Black Oak, Arkansas, for Tommy and Pat Travers, and for Ozzy, of course, Black Sabbath. And I needed that. I needed to be in a band that I take it from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to do that. And what happened with me and Ozzy is I stepped into somebody else's shoes, which was beautiful. But then again, they were not my shoes. I needed to have my own pair of shoes to start working that from the ground up. And that's what Quiet Riot was for me. And so when I lost Randy, I had no idea how I was going to get the joy of making music again. At this point, it's all about keeping Ozzy from overdosing or from killing himself, because he was just in a funk, completely. And it was all about, okay, let's keep him busy, let's keep touring and so on. And so I get a phone call from Kevin, and he goes, "Hey, this is right before I went out to record Speak of the Devil."
Mm-hmm.
I was in LA home, and Kevin calls me up and he says, "Hey, we're in the studio. There's a possible record deal. How would you like to come down and play on Thunderbird?" And so I went down, and there's Frankie Banali, who we talked about my history with him 10 years before. So finally, Frankie, Kevin, and I were in the studio recording for a possible record. I'm a member of Ozzy. I'm just guesting on this,
Mm-hmm.
And Carlos, I had never met him before, but I knew about him from his band Snow that played the same circuit in LA. And so we tracked that really quickly, because the missing link between the Randy Rhoads Quiet Riot and the Mental Health Quiet Riot is Dubrow, the band Dubrow, that Kevin put together when Randy left to join Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was Dubrow that I was doing the session with in the studio. And so we cut that Thunderbird quickly. I used to play that song. I was in Dubrow 8 months and living with Kevin right before I joined Ozzy. I went from Kevin sleeping on the floor in his apartment to living with Sharon and Ozzy, and up in the mansion in the Hollywood Hills. So I cut that song, and then the producer goes, "Do you remember Slick Black Cadillac?" which is the only song that made it from the Randy era to the Mental Health era of Quiet Riot. So we cut it really quickly, and then 2 more Dubrow songs. Let's Get Crazy and Love's a Bitch. So by the time I left that session, I was, still a member of Ozzy, but I recorded 4 songs already for Became the Mental Health record. So a couple of days later, I go to New York. We start working pre-production for the Speak of the Devil. Then we recorded 2 nights at the Ritz. And then I go back to LA, and the thought of, of getting the joy of making music with Frankie and Kevin, I just kept lingering. So I made the toughest decision I ever made.
Right.
My career was to leave one of the biggest bands in the world, and they treated me wonderful. They were wonderful to me, Sharon and Ozzy. So it wasn't a personal decision. It was just that I needed to get the joy of making music again and get into a situation that I can just build it, carry the heavy load, do all the heavy lifting and building the band. I needed to have that experience in my life,
Yeah, it's a soul thing, right? At that point, and your soul tells you that what I'm doing is not exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Well, if Randy would have not passed away, it would have been a whole different thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But since he passed away, I needed to get that back in my life, that consciousness. And that's what we share. That's what I share with Kevin and Frankie. See, I was not a starving musician with Ozzy or Tommy. I was a starving musician going through that period of getting your career going with Frankie and with Kevin. So we had that bond in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in recording Metal Health, which was the first hard rock heavy metal album to go to #1 on the Billboard charts.
Right.
And a lot of people said, kick-started heavy metal in the 80s. So how's it feel? And did you realize at the time that you created I'd say a masterpiece that to this day is still looked upon as one of the classic metal albums of all time? Did you guys realize it at the time when you kind of laid it down and put it out there?
It was very no, because look, I toured and I played the music from Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. So that to me, not that they're different records, different type of bands, but I already did that. I didn't record it or created it, but I was a part of that already. Yeah. So there was what I loved about Metal Health, the record, is how sincere it is. It's we were not trying to be anything else but ourselves. And before I came back, before I recorded Thunderbird, Chuck Wright was a member of Dubrow. So he got to record 2 songs that Carlos brought in to the band. Don't Wanna Let You Go, and originally Metal Health was titled No More Booze. No more booze. What a jam. Okay. So this is what happened. Well, I was touring with Ozzy, and every time that Randy and I would be on a break from touring with Ozzy, we'll go to LA airport, we get picked up, and they'll take us over to Kevin's place just to report to him. This is what's going on out there. Keep doing what you're doing with Dubrow because you're pretty close. Because there's these bands like Def Leppard and there were a couple of other kind of like what Kevin was doing. That the more melodic side of metal. There's these guys, and Girl was another one. That band Girl. We toured with them, and these guys are doing this kind of like similar to what you're doing. But we would do this at the Rainbow. We pick them up, take them to the Rainbow, and give them the report of what's happening out there. Because this is 1982, LA. There's no internet. You have no idea. All you know is that record companies are not interested in what you're doing. But you cannot do anything else but be yourself. So this is Kevin. The music that came out of him. As he wrote the music, a continuation of the Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot. So we're telling we had just been doing some shows in London. In the UK. So we're telling Kevin, you're not gonna believe the fans in the UK, man. They're nuts. They stand in front of the stage and they bang their heads on the stage as we're playing. So Kevin is like listening and kind of like his wheels are turning. And that was the origin of Bang Your Head.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been no more booze.
No more booze.
Yeah. But, you know, going back to it, it was the people in the band, you know, the love that I have for, you know, for playing with Frankie, who I've been trying to play with in a recording band. You know, we moved to LA to do that. Finally, we're doing this after all these years of friendship and struggling. And then with Kevin, of course, and now Carlos, you know, joining the band. So once I officially joined the band, it got renamed Quiet Riot. There's on YouTube, there's an MTV interview that we did early on, and Kevin explains the chain of events. Also, in the book, Keep on Rolling, that just came out about Dubrow, period, is right there. It went from Dubrow to the next fan club letter, back with Quiet Riot, and then talking about me coming back into the band and being renamed Quiet Riot. Yeah.
I mean, you have, you know, there's songs there that across all genres, people know what it is, across all generations, and they love it. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the two songs on that album everyone knows across. How does that feel? That's got to feel great. You know, and the feedback when you're playing that now live, that's crazy because everyone's there.
Yeah.
They love what you're doing. Everyone's there because they love what you're doing.
Yeah, you know, this is the first time that I go on the road with a purpose, what I call the higher purpose, because the purpose usually is to go out there and play the songs and promote the record and, you know, do what you love. But now my purpose is the responsibility of that we all have to celebrate the legacy of the band and the memory of the members who are no longer with us.
Right.
You know, Frankie, Kevin, and Randy. Yeah. So now when I go on the road, no matter how challenging it is to fly, travel, travel. Yeah, because that's how we do it. We go, you know, we fly everywhere, you know, and that goes away. All the challenges, all that goes away as soon as we hit the stage and we have a blast. I mean, I could not be playing with better family band brothers if the, you know, original guys are no longer with us. Then playing with Jizzy, Alex, and Johnny. It's the best. I cannot think of better band brothers to play with.
So Johnny was on the podcast like a month and a half ago.
Month ago.
And
he's great.
We asked him who the best bass players in the world are, and he said Peter and Rudy, top two bass players of all time. And he said he loves waking up just to give you a hard time, and like loves like he thinks you're like the best human being on earth, and he couldn't enjoy you more. But he really gets a kick out of giving you a hard time, I guess. And you know,
I love Johnny.
It's great.
I love Johnny. Yeah, I you know what was really ironic is that when we in the 2000s they had these they're called the Rock Never Stop. It's like a tours, and Poison would be like the headliner. Then will be Warrant and ourselves, or you know, Slaughter. And so we had a bus. We were not flying, so we actually were in a bus. So Kevin would show up with like a typo negative CD and says, "Check this out," and it was like, wow, this is really cool. This is really, really different. So we were all listening to typo in the bus, you know, and really digging it. And another one was Jizzy with his band Love Hate. Kevin loved Jizzy. He loved Jizzy and Love Hate as a band, you know. So it's ironic that the guys that were really appreciated by the band members in Quiet Riot, the OG guys, you know, are now part of the group, you know.
That's great. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm fairly friends. I'm not trying to name drop with Jeff Tate, and he could not say enough nice things about you, Rudy.
I love Jeff. I love Jeff.
And I was fortunate enough to see you and your brother play with Jeff when he had that version of Queensryche back in the Chicago area.
Oh, Chicago,
yeah. You were at the Arcada Theater, and after the show, we hung out by the bus and actually hung out with your brother and Kelly Gray for about half an hour. They were just sitting there shooting the shit with us. It was so cool. Your brother is just as nice as you are.
Yeah, no, he's great. Yeah, that was the only time I've ever toured with my brother, Jeff was great. I mean, it was a great organization. But you know what? It was a little weird for me because I see Queensryche was the support band for Quiet Riot in 1983. They had just come out with Queen of the Reich EP.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to be really, close friends with those guys, all of them. So to be in a situation where it looked like I'm taking a side,
Yeah.
by being in this version of the band versus the other version of the band. I was just, I really enjoyed the fact that I got to tour with my brother, but the whole thing about the inner politics, which had nothing to do with me.
Right.
Right.
That was tough. So I was glad when things were settled.
Yeah.
It was great. Okay. I moved on to something else,
Yeah.
But I have the utmost respect. I mean, people say, "Oh, you play with Queensryche." I say, no, Eddie is the only bass player that's ever been in Queensryche.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So
and so, go ahead, Vince. Go ahead.
Before I forget,
Baby Willow.
I think if everyone had a dog, the world would be a much better place.
Oh, my,
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the secret sauce right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, Fred. Go ahead, man.
Oh no, I was. To say we haven't even touched on half the bands you've been in, but I'd just like to ask you this question: is Randy aside, who would you rate as the best guitar player you've ever played with?
Oh God,
that's tough.
Wow.
Played with some great ones.
Because
I look at myself as a musician. That's how I measure myself. It's not like I'm trying to be the best bass player. No, I'm trying to be the best musician, and I just happen to play bass.
Right.
So I mean, to call a guitar player just a guitar player, to me, it's a little shallow. So besides Randy, the most musical guitar player I've ever played with, it's got to be Tony McAlpine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because Tony started out as a classical pianist, and he majored on all these Chopin etude. A competitive pianist, classical pianist. I mean, that's rough. You got to get up there and compete. They say music is not a competitive sport. Well, if you're a competitive classical pianist, yes, it is.
Right.
And his concentration is beyond. I mean, like we're talking about Randy. So you asking me that question. His knowledge of music, and he started playing guitar. He told me early on when we had a band together.
Yeah, Mars.
He said, Project Mars. Yeah, he told me. I asked him, "You classical pianist, how do you get into rock?" And he goes, "Well, I heard George Lynch, and I just fell in love with the sound."
Yeah.
So he took So he took this musical knowledge that he had from classical music, and he just applied that to a different instrument. Yeah. But that's really being a musician. Because you're thinking musically, you're not thinking about what's the easiest thing to do on the guitar. Oh yeah, all the songs are going to be in E or A. No, he didn't care. You could be in any key, he would play it.
Yeah.
And some songs are just more fun to play than others when you're playing them with different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All depends.
Yeah. Well, that's chemistry. That's a whole different. It's not the fault of the song that you hate playing the song. It could be that you're just not clicking.
Right.
You're not resonating at the same frequency with somebody else in the band.
Right.
So speaking of Mars, since we brought it up with Tony McAlpine, Tommy Aldridge, and Rob Rock. Sorry. Was that intended to just be a one-time thing, or did you guys think that maybe this would be a full-fledged band moving forward?
Well, yeah. Back in the day, is unless you were signed to a major label, you were dead in the water. You were not part of the radio or MTV or the big machine, the promotion machine. So this was done. This was produced by Mike Barney, Shrapnel Records. So the strategy was half of the record is going to be heavy, Shrapnel Records type of music, and the other half was going to be more commercial to appeal to the major labels. And the labels did not go for it, so it got released on Shrapnel, and that was it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's amazing sometimes what the business people don't get. That just goes right past them,
Well, yeah, you're right. They didn't get Randy Rhoads. Randy was being rejected by labels, and a few months later, he's recording Blizzard of Oz, and then after that, Diary of a Madman. Same guy. It was basically the same musical knowledge. It wasn't like he went to GIT and studied and then made this record. No, this is Randy. This is what was inside of him that came out when Ozzy told him to, because he asked Randy. Randy asked Ozzy, "What do you want me to write?" And Ozzy said, "Just be yourself." And that's when he was allowed to dig in deep into his classical music.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean,
Would you love to be in a room when Randy walked into Audition? And I've heard the story that he walked in and he looks like he's 12 years old, the blonde hair, the boyish good looks, and also just shredding away. I imagine he just blew Sharon and Ozzy away. They were, holy shit.
Well, it was Dana Strum that was responsible for that, and I've had conversations with Dana about it. So I've had conversations from what I experienced. So we fill in each other's cracks of the story, details that we're missing. But you should have him on the show. I mean, he's an incredible source of all that information.
Dana,
hey,
we'd love to have him. Maybe you can put a word in for us. That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, I'm writing it down. Dana Strum.
So Blue Oyster Cult. I have to ask about Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah. What would you like to know?
That must have been pretty cool, because that's like a totally different. It's not different, but it is. You know what I mean? Like not of the normal.
Well, it's part of the soundtrack of my of music. My soundtrack of my life. So I dug in deep into their catalog. I mean, when I started playing with them, I researched everything. I listened to the records. Then I listened to all the live recordings that were available on record, because they did a lot of live records. And then I listened to the way they updated the music and how they played a little bit different by the time that I started playing with them. So I was really knee deep into Blue Oyster Cult, and they're wonderful people.
Oh, they're great.
So it was just a joy, to play that music. And I had to learn about 40 songs, because at any moment, Eric Bloom would call out something, because somebody in the audience would yell the title, and it would turn around and say, "Okay."
Hard set list. That's what we're playing.
Yeah, and you better know the song. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the amount of songs, the number of different songs you played on stage is amazing.
Yeah, there were about 5 songs that we will all play every night. And then in between that, there would be it could be anything. You have to have Godzilla, Godzilla, the Reaper. You have to have Burning for You, and a couple of other more that were the staple of the set at that moment. And the rest, anything goes.
But that'd make it more fun, or is it a little bit more stressful? I'm sure.
Well, you have to retain music that might not be played 4 months, and then all of a sudden there it is. You got to play this, with no notice. So
wow,
no stress.
Yeah.
Bugs Boogie. That was a great song to play. Yeah.
this will probably be a question you can answer, or you don't have to if it's way too hard. Do you have a favorite song to play live?
Well, with BOC was Buck's Boogie. That was tremendous. I mean, Buck Dharma, he's of all the guitar players I've ever played with, he's the most underrated because he comes from a different school, playing the cage system for his solos, a different Mel Bay approach of music. He's a shredder, but it's a very melodic shredder, like traditionally a shredder in the 80s would kind of like play some kind of pentatonic box and just play really fast with the right hand picking. But no, Donald Roser, that's his name, Buck, he would come from a more melodic, so he kind of like play all over the neck. He used the whole neck rather than just stay in one spot and just like play really fast, so completely underrated. Yeah.
Great band.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And great songwriter too.
Yeah.
And singer. He sang all those hits. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they just I think they just came out with, or they're I know they have a new video out, but they just came out with some new old stuff that they've had in the vault kind of, and they finished some stuff up.
Oh wow, great.
Yeah, I saw that.
But the world loves Rudy Sarzo. And they absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Rudy, thank you so much for your time, sir. We appreciate
thank you for having me on the show. I had a great time.
All the music.
Really.
Good.
Thank you, Rudy. And I think if it works out right, the end of May, you guys are going to be up in Madison, Wisconsin at the Bratfest.
Yes, we are.
Vince and I plan on popping in to see your show that day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, send me a reminder and I'll put you on the list.
All right.
Oh, awesome. All right. Yeah, we're planning on doing it coming up for that 2-day fest. So we'll definitely see you and Johnny there.
All right, Rudy.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, sir. And everyone,
thank you, Rudy.
Go buy some Quiet Riot and go see Quiet Riot, because if you love heavy metal, that's probably one of the reasons why.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. God bless.
Talking.
God bless.